NHS crisis, what crisis? The Red Cross says there's a humanitarian one. The government disagrees. Jeremy Hunt says hospitals are performing slightly better than last year after the Prime Minister rejected the charity's claim yesterday.
I actually did say last year this will happen, patients will die in the corridor, and it's happening already. Is that not a humanitarian issue? Is that not a human right issue?
Theresa May's top priority for the NHS is mental health. She's announced new help for schools, but with no more money, will it work? Also this lunchtime, the killer big chill across Europe. The Pope calls for prayers for the homeless. And British glory at the Golden Globes. The Night Manager and The Crown win big, but Hollywood royalty attacks America's next president.
When the person asking to sit in the most respected seat in our country imitated a disabled reporter, it kind of broke my heart.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Mina Hussain.
Good afternoon. The Prime Minister and her Health Secretary say the NHS isn't in crisis. Some patients and some who work in the health service disagree. The Red Cross, known for its work in war zones, has described the current situation as a humanitarian crisis. So what's the truth this winter and beyond? Our political correspondent, Libby Vina, reports.
Hospitals turning away ambulances, patients on trolleys and patients dying unnecessarily. The Red Cross described it as a humanitarian crisis, and some junior doctors say they're not wrong.
It's utter chaos down here. We have patients queuing all the way up the corridor, as we have been for the last few weeks. This is actually normal now. It's been accepted as normal in quite a lot of the trusts that I've been working in. We now have nurses that are dedicated to looking after these patients in the corridor.
The ambulances, despite being at the hospital, are taking up to 2 hours to unload their patients into the department. It's really great working in emergency medicine, but I can't help but think we're not giving the care that we want to.
The Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt insists this isn't the worst winter the NHS has gone through on his watch. But would he send a member of his family to a hospital on the highest alert, he was asked.
Well, I think it's very important for your viewers to understand that I would be happy to send a member of my family to the vast majority of NHS hospitals.
But not one on high level of alert?
Well, the ones, all hospitals have periods where the pressure gets higher. What we've seen over this Christmas period is a few hospitals which have had very sustained and difficult problems, particularly Worcestershire, but a number of others.
Labour say the government hasn't put its money where its mouth is. The NHS again suffering from underinvestment.
We've had several hospitals warn that they're not able to provide comprehensive care. This is just staggering for 21st century Britain. And it's because the NHS is going through the biggest financial squeeze in its history. Indeed, by next year, money head for head will be cut in the NHS. I really think the government have got to get their priorities right and get a grip of this situation and do it urgently.
The Health Secretary will be quizzed by MPs on the issue later today. Libby Vina, ITV News, Westminster.
We're joined now from the Royal Blackburn Hospital by its medical director, Dr. Damien Riley. Thank you for talking to me. The Red Cross has called the current situation a humanitarian crisis. Is this a description you recognise at your hospital right now?
No, I wouldn't call it a crisis in the hospital here at the moment. I would certainly say we are busy, and we're busier this winter than last winter.
How challenging is it?
So it's been challenging, there's no doubt about that, and what we have certainly seen is quite an increase in the number of sick patients coming to us. And we've responded to this in a number of ways. The first thing is the staff have really stepped up to the plate, and we've had some fantastic work from our staff. The second is we're dealing with this as a whole system. So we're having daily teleconferences with local authority and primary care colleagues. And the final thing is, internally within the Trust, we've put in place a number of contingency measures to make sure that the patients stay safe, and that's our first and foremost priority. So we don't leave any patients waiting in the ambulance. All patients do come into the department, and they will be supervised by ambulance crews.
Sorry to interrupt. So you can guarantee that you have no patients waiting at the moment? Because obviously at other hospitals we have seen patients waiting. We saw one who died after waiting on a trolley for 35 hours. There are no waits at your hospital right now.
So what we're saying is that our policy at the Trust here, we bring the patients in from the ambulances when the ambulances arrive. Now that may involve at busy times some waiting of the patients on the corridor, but our priority there is to always make sure those patients are supervised, and there will always be either an ambulance crew or hospital nursing team with them observing them in the corridor. And we have a very rapid process of assessing all those patients to make sure sick patients are seen very, very promptly.
There is a lot of talk right now about the extra pressure on our hospitals because of winter. Is this a winter problem, or can you see these problems continuing when we are through this period?
Well, the information we're getting from public health colleagues is that there's a high level of circulating virus and illness in the community. So I do believe that this is a seasonal peak, but we recognise that the NHS is busy and is perhaps having to work extra hard for a number of weeks to make this a safe situation.
Dr. Damien Riley, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you. Well, while the Prime Minister denied there was a crisis in the NHS, she did admit a need to improve mental health care. Today, she promised a full review of mental health services for children and adolescents across England. The government will also look at new ways to strengthen links between schools and local NHS mental health staff. And the Prime Minister also said that every secondary school will be offered mental health first aid training to help them identify those who need support.
This starts with ensuring that children and teenagers get the help and support they need and deserve. Because we know that mental illness too often starts in childhood, and that when left untreated, it can blight lives and become entrenched. There is, for example, evidence to suggest an increase in self-harm among young people.
One of the schools already training its teachers in mental health awareness is the King's School in Winchester. Our reporter Martha Fairley is there now with a teacher and some pupils. Martha, take us through what they're doing there.
Well, today's announcement by the Prime Minister has been prompted by figures that show that half of all mental health problems start by the age of 14. Now, at King's School, for several years, they have been using a mental health first aid scheme. And Jane Berridge, who's the welfare manager, is here. Now, Jane, can you tell us what kind of training that involves for teachers?
So in school, the best thing we can do is help a child achieve their potential, whether it's through curriculum, social enrichment and sport. However, if their mental health and well-being is not looked at and supported as well, they won't achieve it. So we've got teams in school that are working with children to help them achieve their potential.
And how much has this been used by the pupils since you brought it in 3 years ago?
We have pupils every single day coming to see us because they've got complex situations going on at home. It could be there's been a significant event that's happened in their life that has impacted on their mental well-being. So every single day we have children that come to see us asking for help and support.
Are these not just general teenage problems anyway, or is this something bigger?
We always have children with general teenage problems, but you know, there could be a bereavement, it could be a really significant impact that this child has had on their life, and they do need support and guidance to get through it. And if we don't give it to them, it's going to be difficult for them.
OK, thank you, Jane. Well, let's hear from some of the pupils. Now, first of all, Zach, you're in Year 11. Can you tell me about some of the stresses that you face at this stage in your school?
Yeah. Well, obviously, I have GCSEs coming up now, and revision stacking up after Christmas holidays. I also in sport, you know, you're moving on from the junior teams to the men's teams, so that's a lot of pressure to, you know, up the standard, and just generally, you know, you're moving on from like primary school and secondary school onto colleges, so you're thinking about all that as well. OK, and very quickly, George, do you think there are different issues for the girls and boys at this stage?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different kind of pressure for guys and girls, but there's the whole society. It's just different for everyone.
OK, thank you. I'm afraid we're going to have to stop you there. But the first aid system, of course, is just a system for recognising the problems. What's going to be important is that there's something that the teachers can then direct the pupils to once they've identified that they need help.
Martha Fairley in Winchester, thank you. Well, I'm joined from our Westminster studios by Samantha Nicklin from the charity Rethink Mental Illness and by Ollie Regan, someone who has struggled with mental health himself from a young age. He joins me now from his home in Bromley. Ollie, thank you for joining me. Samantha too. Ollie, do you think this sort of support that we've been discussing today, starting at school level, if you'd had that when you were younger, could it have helped you avoid some of the things you've gone through in your life so far?
Oh, definitely, 100%. I mean, if it had got intervened at a younger age, I would have then known what I was going through and then be able to maybe go to the right place and, like you say, with the mental health first aid training, if teachers knew that, they may be able to put me into the right position to help myself.
At the worst of times, the lack of support that you had actually led to your mental health deteriorating, and you tried to take your own life because of the lack of support you were getting. This was really crucial.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously I was going through a really hard stage of my life and I didn't know what was going on, and I got misdiagnosed and sort of pushed to the side really and never sort of got any help that I needed, and I think that's very much to do with funding and false promises from previous governments. OK,
Samantha, on that issue of funding there, a lot of promises and pledges from the Prime Minister today with no new money. So how will it work?
Well, we really welcome the Prime Minister's leadership and commitment on mental health because this is an issue that affects us all. It's really important that the government are prioritising mental health, and they've set out a plan for how they'll do that in the 5-year forward view for mental health. They've said they will invest billions of extra pounds to make sure we see the changes on the ground. But that is a long wait for many people who are trying to access good quality mental health services. Often they have to wait too long, or the services they need aren't available where they live, and that needs to change. Otherwise, if people can't get a GP appointment or can't access a mental health bed, all of this is just words.
Ollie, you're nodding in agreement. Do you believe that in the long run things will improve, that the government, without the funding, but at least has the right focus, or do you think the money is crucial?
The money's definitely crucial. I mean, I admitted myself to hospital and they sent me to the A&E department, and I went actually to the mental health hospital, and they sent me to A&E to sit with everyone else that's suffering with physical problems, and obviously that is so difficult in itself. So I think that'll change things a lot if there is funding there, but I just don't know where it's going to come from, and it's all pretty false lies like the previous governments, like I said.
We shall have to wait and see. Ollie Regan and Samantha Nicklin, thank you both for joining me this lunchtime. Thank you. In the last half an hour, it's been announced that thousands of nuclear workers are to be balloted for strikes in a row over pensions. The Nuclear Decommissioning Authority wants to save £660 million by changing the current scheme. Around 16,000 employees working for the sites like Sellafield would be affected if the action goes ahead. And elsewhere, police have arrested 16 people in connection with the robbery of Kim Kardashian in Paris last October. That's according to French media. The reality TV star was robbed at gunpoint for £8 million worth of jewellery. Here, millions of London Underground passengers have faced a chaotic journey to work this morning amid a 24-hour strike over staffing and ticket office closures. The number of workers on strike isn't clear. The Mayor of London said more had turned up for work than the unions claim, but whatever the truth, it made for a difficult commute for many. We'll have the latest live from a tube station in just a moment, but first, here's Chris Cunningham.
Crowds almost at a standstill on the streets of London as millions of commuters face the mayhem of a tube strike, with nearly all central London stations remaining closed until 6 o'clock this evening. For anyone trying to get around the capital, this means cramming onto buses, braving overcrowded trains, or simply walking to their destinations.
I pay £212 for this every month. £212. This is what I get. It's not fair at all.
I understand why they're striking. Not sure it's necessarily the right course of action for them to take at this time, but you know, that's their privilege, I guess.
A bit ridiculous. You can probably see the queues behind me. It's not good. So, yeah, I'll probably start walking.
The strike is part of a continuing row over the impact of ticket office closures, with over 800 posts being cut, all part of Transport for London's modernisation plans. Plans unions say are dangerous.
It's unsafe for everybody, yeah, but particularly the passengers. We've had examples of where we've had severely overcrowded stations and more passengers going onto crowded platforms because there ain't enough staff to manage that amount of people. Trains stop, passengers falling down between trains and incidents like that. And if we're not careful, we'll end up with a tragedy.
Transport for London say that the strike is unnecessary and that they have already started to recruit 200 extra staff to address shortages. But this will be of little consolation to those looking for a way through today's chaos. Chris Cunningham, ITV News.
Our correspondent Dan Rivers is at King's Cross Station in central London. The morning rush hour now long gone, but the commuters will be preparing themselves for much of the same later in the day.
Yeah, I mean, Transport for London have just put out a statement saying that 69% of tube stations are open, but you can see the main one here at King's Cross is closed. We've seen very long queues for buses over here. The queue for the taxis was about 40 minutes long, people having to wait out in the rain. TfL have got staff here trying to advise people who are arriving off trains what to do and how to get to places, but the tube workers we've spoken to here in the middle of London say that most of Zone 1 is out of action, and you can only imagine what that's going to mean as the evening rush hour starts to build up. The roads around here and around much of central London are an absolute gridlock, so it's going to be a really miserable rush hour for people trying to get out of London this evening.
Dan Rivers, thank you. 8 people have died in Italy after blizzards and dangerously cold conditions continue to sweep across Europe. The Pope called for urgent prayers for the homeless as many hostels in Rome open their doors for 24 hours. Sally Biddulph has the latest.
Freezing and deadly. An Arctic blast has swept across Europe, bringing with it a growing death toll. In normally warmer climes, the cold has prevailed. In Greece, refugees kept inside their shelters in their camp on the island of Lesbos. Particularly heavy snowfall, uncharacteristic to southern Italy, came as a shock. Getting about was almost impossible. As fountains froze in St. Peter's Square in Rome, Pope Francis urged everyone to help those most in need.
In questi giorni di tanto freddo,
in these days of intense cold, he said, I invite you to think of all the people who live on the street, beaten by the cold and many times also by indifference. Unfortunately, some of them have not made it. At least 20 people have died across Europe. In Romania, the Black Sea has frozen over for the first time in 5 years. The Danube is still flowing for now, but shows many signs of going the same way, as does the Vistula in Warsaw. Poland has experienced lows of -30 overnight. Turkey has been hard hit too, with accidents on the roads and flights cancelled. In Istanbul, though, the famous Blue Mosque has been dusted white, drawing many out to see it in the freezing cold. Beautiful scenes too in Belgium, where people are making the most of it. But enjoyment aside, there are warnings that a cold snap is also headed our way, with snow and lows of -10 forecast for Friday. Sally Biddulph, ITV News.
Finally, this lunchtime, British actors won big at the Golden Globes overnight, with glory for the stars of The Night Manager and Claire Foy, who plays the Queen in The Crown. The musical La La Land won 7 prizes, breaking Anne Award's records, with trophies for the 2 leads, Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone. But the talking point was Meryl Streep's winner's speech, which she devoted almost entirely to an attack on Donald Trump. Here's our arts editor, Nina Nanar.
There was plenty of noise on the red carpet as film and TV stars mingled for the first of the major screen awards. But when it came to winners, it was the man who walked away with the biggest prize last November who dominated some of the victory speeches. President-elect Trump may not have been watching, but he got plenty of mentions, most notably from the biggest winner of the night.
Meryl Streep.
3-time Oscar winner Meryl Streep was being awarded for a lifetime on the screen. But it was a TV appearance made by Donald Trump during his election campaign in which he impersonated a disabled reporter that she wanted to talk about.
It was that moment when the person asking to sit in the most respected seat in our country, imitated a disabled reporter, someone he outranked in privilege, power, and the capacity to fight back. It kind of broke my heart when I saw it, and I still can't get it out of my head because it wasn't in a movie. It was real life.
This was that moment during a rally last year.
I don't remember!
And widely criticised. Hours later, Donald Trump took to Twitter in an extraordinary fight back. Meryl Streep, he wrote, one of the most overrated actresses in Hollywood, doesn't know me, but attacked me last night at the Golden Globes. She is a Hillary flunky who lost big, going on to say he'd never mocked the disabled reporter. The Golden Globe winners are chosen by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, so British winner Hugh Laurie got political too.
And I'll be able to say I won this at the last ever Golden Globes. I don't mean to be gloomy, it's just that it has the words Hollywood Foreign and Press in the title. I just don't know what...
Tom Hiddleston, the night manager.
In fact, it was a good night for the British in Hollywood. The BBC series The Night Manager got 3 acting awards, including one for the lead Tom Hiddleston. And Claire Foy was awarded for her role as the young Queen Elizabeth in The Crown. But the biggest winner of the night was the film musical La La Land, released in the UK later this week, sweeping the board with 7 wins. Old-fashioned Hollywood romance offering relief in a year of heavy politics. Nina Nanar, ITV News.
And for a full list of last night's winners and behind-the-scenes interviews, do head to our website. The address, as usual, itv.com/news. That's all we've got time for this lunchtime. Do join Mary Nightingale for the ITV Evening News tonight, if you can. From everyone here for now, bye-bye.